Hi guys, today I wanted to do something a little bit different. Today I wanted to do something that I've been talking about doing since my first video, and I want to do a beginner friendly makeup tutorial and just talk about what I feel like if you're starting your collection, what is the best thing to start with, what do these products do, is it worth buying, what are some good products to start with. I feel like I just repeated myself a couple times there, but I just wanted to do that. Originally I did this as a sit down chit chat type video and I spent such a long time, so we're going to try to make this a little bit shorter. Also, at the end of the day, it's up to you. If I say like, oh, I don't know, this is necessary for a beginner, but you feel like you want to start with that, please feel free to. This is just what helped me. This is how, this is what I think would help a beginner, but don't feel like you have to go with that. Go with what you want to go with what you feel like is going to work best for you. And yeah. Okay, so the first thing I want to discuss is primer. So to me, primer is not something you have to start with. I know a lot of people like primer, and don't get me wrong, like if you want to start with primer, you totally 100% can. But to me, when you're experimenting with what foundation you like best, you can totally just start with a moisturizer. I recommend having something to kind of help that makeup go on, but to be honest with you, I think just a moisturizer is a great way to start. Now, as you get more into foundation, you might notice your makeup's not lasting as long as you would like it to, or maybe you're noticing some texture on your skin or pores or redness still showing through that you don't want to show through, and then that's when you can really spend some time looking through primers and seeing what works best for you. I think I'm going to make, if you're not following my TikTok, I will put that in the description. I did start I started a series on being more specific on understanding makeup, so I will eventually, if you guys want that, do a video over the different types of primers and knowing which primer fits best for you. But when you're starting, as I said, I recommend just a moisturizer. So the next step is totally up to you and how much coverage you want. If you just want a little bit of coverage, a little bit of evening out, I recommend just using a concealer. But if you want a little bit more all over coverage, full coverage, that's when you can go into foundation. So what I'm going to do is, normally I do my concealer after foundation, but for today I'm going to do concealer first just to kind of show you, and then I will transition into foundation. So this is the e.l.f. Hydrating Camo Concealer. This is really, really good if you have more oily skin. They do have a matte version that's really, really good. And then also, if you're looking for something with a little bit less coverage, the Maybelline Instant Age Rewind is absolutely great and is a little bit less coverage. So first I'm going to start with spots I want to brighten. So concealer, you typically want to go a shade lighter than your foundation shade. That way you can help kind of brighten everything up. So I'm just going to, you see triangles, I'm just going to dot it today though. Like so. And then this, what I am doing right now, is typically where you want to brighten. So while I am brightening, I'm just going to use a sponge to blend this out. Really make sure to really press this in the skin. You want to make sure it's completely blended and completely, smoothing your skin. So I'm just blending this. I usually just use like a patting motion with a damp beauty sponge. There is the beauty blender, but I mean, there's some cheaper alternatives. This is the Ulta one. I really, really like the Ulta one. Morphe's got a good one. I've heard good things about the e.l.f. one, I think. I have not personally tried it. So definitely, Eco Tools is another really, really good one. Is that the orange? There's an orange sponge. If anybody knows what I'm talking about, I cannot remember the name of it now, but that's a really, really good one. So don't feel like you have to spend like a ton of money on sponges and just makeup in general. There is almost always a drugstore alternative. Okay, so now I'm going to go in and cover up some of the spots I have. Now if you are doing, what was I going to say? I can't remember what I was going to say now. But anyway, so I'm just going to dot this on like so. Just any spots you might have. And what I'm going to do is I am going to show you how to blend, not how to blend, but like how I like to blend it for the most coverage possible. But if you are doing foundation, a trick is to, instead of blending it out, if you're going for really full coverage, let it dry a little bit and then blend your foundation over it without blending it. That's a really great trick if you want absolutely flawless coverage. But I'm going to show you today, if you are just doing concealer, the best way to blend it out, which is to use a brush to get a little bit more coverage. Where'd it go? Okay, so if you just want to use a sponge, you totally can. But if you want a little bit more coverage, I recommend a brush. This is just an AOA brush. This is the high def brush. This is an F5. AOA makes really great brushes, and they're only $1 a piece. So I'm just kind of half dabbing, half kind of like, yeah. And this is just going to help you get the most coverage possible, to help you really cover up any of those spots you might want to cover. Don't feel like you have to do this, but it is an option. Okay, so I am just blending. I think we are blended out all the way. So if you just want to, if you just want to do this, I recommend setting it with a little bit of powder, which I will discuss powder in a few minutes. But if you don't want to move on to foundation, then you can totally just stay at this step and skip the next step that I'm going to do. Now, if you want your brightening to like be really, really bright, really, really dramatic, I do recommend doing your concealer after foundation. Today I'm just going to leave it, but there's different options. Just experiment, see what you like, see what works best for your skin. So what you can do is you have liquid and powder foundation. Powder foundation typically is not going to offer as much coverage. I've never really found a super high coverage powder foundations. I know they're out there, I just don't find that. You also have to be careful if you have dry skin. Powder foundations can cling to those dry spots, but typically if I want a powder foundation, I'll just use Cottier Spun. It's a loose translucent powder, but it's also got some, well, wouldn't it be translucent if it's got some coverage, would it? It's a loose powder that I typically use for baking, but sometimes I do use that as a powder foundation. That works great, but as I said, it can cling to dry spots. So some foundation recommendations if you want to go liquid. If you want a little bit of a higher coverage, I would recommend the Dream Urban Cover by Maybelline. The L'Oreal Infallible is really good. And then some kind of going down in coverage. The CoverGirl, it's like 3-in-1 foundation, is really, really good. And then I'm also, what I'm going to be using today is the Mega Cushion Foundation by Wet n Wild. This one doesn't offer a ton of coverage, but it builds up nicely. So they come with a little baby like cotton swab, but honestly I just like a sponge. You can use a brush for your foundation. My only issue with a brush is that product tends to kind of like get like kind of gunk up in your brush, if that makes sense. And don't get me wrong, obviously you want to wash your brushes, but I find you have to wash it a lot more often. So I guess it just depends how often you want to wash your brushes. And if you decide to use a brush for foundation, I just like to use a sponge, just using the dabbing motions all over my face. And as I said, whether or not you go full or light coverage is totally up to you. Full coverage is going to make your skin look more, it's going to cancel out like most of your blemishes, redness, whatever. But if you want like a more natural look to just barely, you just want to even things out, you can definitely go more low coverage. You can even go with like a BB or CC cream, which also is going to be really low coverage. Same with a tinted moisturizer. It's just up to what works best for you. So there is that. So as you can see, like you can still see kind of like some marks on my skin with this foundation, but it does help even everything out. So next is powder. So you want to, no matter what, if you're just using your concealer, if you're using a low coverage foundation, a high coverage foundation, you want to set with powder, even if you have dry skin. I know it's easy to think if I have dry skin, I want to avoid powder at all cost. You don't want to do that because your foundation is still going to come off throughout the day. Now, if you are using a powder foundation, obviously you don't necessarily need to powder. I still like to powder my concealer with a separate one, but you don't have to. But if you're using a liquid foundation, even if it's just lightly dusting it with a fluffy brush, I highly recommend using a powder. So my favorite powder is the Maybeline Fit Me Matte and Poreless. There used to be one for dry skin, but I have not been able to find it lately. But if you can find it, that is an option. Where does the little, oh, I lost the little poof. So I do like to use the little poof in here for, I first start off with just pressing in my skin the areas that I put concealer on to brighten. That's going to be the areas that tend to break up the most throughout the day. So that, in my opinion, is where you want to powder the most. Just keep an eye on your skin throughout the day and see what areas break up the fastest for you, and that's going to be where you want to be more, concentrate more with your powder. And then what I like to do is I like to take a flat foundation brush and go in and just press this all over my face into my skin to just help that foundation last all day. It adds a little extra coverage. As I said, you can take a fluffy brush and just kind of lightly brush your face if you want, but this is what I find works best for my skin. And yes, I do have dry skin. Like, you can totally still get away with this even with dry skin. So now we're going to move on to blush and bronzer. I am going to do both blush and bronzer today, but don't feel like you have to do both, especially if you're going into lower coverage type makeup. I recommend, honestly, if you are wanting to go super natural, just taking a blush, fluffy brush, just lightly kind of adding some color back into your skin, but not going over the top. That is totally up to you. I also recommend when you're starting using powders. If you want, I can make a video on using cream contours, cream blushes, and cream highlights, but I do recommend when you're starting, probably start with a powdered blush. So two blushes that I recommend from the drugstore are both Milani in Tea Rose and e.l.f. in Bright Pink. CoverGirl has got some really good ones too if you're looking for something that's super, super neutral. These are super light. It's hard to get carried away with them, which can be nice when you are learning to build up blush. So for today, I think I'm going to use Tea Rose. I really like Tea Rose. So deciding where you want to put on your blush is important. Hold on. I lost my brush. So where you decide to put your blush depends on what kind of look you're going for. And I know there's always like, people are like, wait, there's multiple ways to put on your blush. Yes. So if you are wanting to have really, really dramatic cheekbones, you really want your face to look structured, you don't want to bring it too much in. You want to kind of focus almost where you put highlight and just kind of work up the cheekbone like that. I don't have any product on my brush. But, you know, still starting at those apples, but going up. I know some people may not agree with that, but that is a way that I like to do it whenever I, as I said, want a really dramatic contour. But just for everyday, I just like to focus on the apples of my cheeks. And then whether or not you decide to put blush on your nose is completely up to you. Sometimes for me, I can find that I've like built up a lot of color like on the rest of my face, and then my nose feels like it has no color. So I like to add a little bit of blush to my nose, but that is completely up to you. And if you feel like you got a little bit carried away with your blush, do not panic. Just take your sponge that you use to blend your foundation, and you can just use that to press it into the skin. If you want your blush to look a lot more natural, this is the way to go. It's going to make it look like it kind of like shines from under the foundation a little bit more. And then worst comes to absolute worst, if it is just out of control, you don't know what else to do, that foundation brush and some powder, go over it, that will fix it. So bronzer and contour, the main difference is contour is going to be a little bit more cool toned and it's more made to kind of sculpt your face. Bronzer is made to warm up your face. It still sculpts a little bit, but it's going to warm up more. Today I'm going to use some bronzer. If you want me to go into more detail on contour versus bronzer, let me know. Also, if you want to do both, you can do both. A lot of times I do both. Today I'm going for kind of a more natural look, so I'm just going to use bronzer, but if you want to use both, don't feel like you can't. I also can do a video specifically discussing using both bronzer and contour, just contour. Let me know in the comments below what you want to see, and I can do that. So I like to use kind of a fluffier brush for my bronzer. The bronzer I'm going to be using today, I feel like everybody talks about, is the Physicians Formula Butter Bronzer. It's such a good bronzer. I don't recommend the little applicator in here though. I don't know what that's for. I tried it once. It was bad. But anyway, so with this bronzer, you want to lightly tap. You want to have a light hand. And then you want to start kind of under the cheekbones. As I said, if you just want to start with blush, don't feel like you can't just start with blush. This is completely optional. But what I like to do is I like to take a little bit on the forehead, a little bit on the chin, and then obviously under the cheekbone. I like to go the most pigmented around my cheekbone area, and then go a little bit lighter along my chin and forehead. I went a little bit crazy on the forehead today, so I'm going to do that beauty blender trick where I take that and just kind of help blend it down. I also recommend having a fluffy brush though without any product to just kind of help blend that out. Could do the other side of my face. And then I do like to add a little bit to my nose. I don't like to go too like structured with my nose, but I do like to add a little bit. This also smells amazing. I want a perfume that smells like this. If anybody knows of one, let me know. So this, as you can see, what it did is it just added some color to my face. If you're really pale, this can help. So I really like having a little bit of bronzer or contour. I like to have one of the two. Now, this next thing I'm going to do, I am going to do it today, but I don't feel like you absolutely have to have this as a beginner. I feel like this is something, I feel like makeup's kind of in stages. I feel like this is kind of going into like a stage 2 type thing, which is highlight. Once again, don't feel like you have to jump straight into highlight. I love highlight, but you don't have to jump straight into it. But when you do start getting into highlight, I do recommend picking up a palette. Having multiple colors of highlight really helps because you can get an idea on what works best for your skin tone, what you like best in a highlight. It gives you an idea. So I absolutely love, I've talked about this before, I've raved about this before. Most of my Instagram posts, if you looked at the products mentioned, this is going to be mentioned. This is the Rachloves Layers Pixi Highlight. I absolutely love her channel. And so that's why I picked this up, but I'm not gonna lie, I was so impressed with this highlight, did not expect it to be as beautiful as it is, so I really, really like it. So with highlight, what highlight does is kind of, where the light naturally kind of hits your face, you want that to like stick out. And there's more natural highlights that are less shimmery, there's more shimmery ones, it just depends on what you like best. I can totally do a video on more specific highlight. If you want me to, I can add that into the contour. I think I am going to do like a hardcore over the top if you want dramatic contour video. So today I'm just going to do a very, very basic highlight. There's more spots you can add highlighter to. I do plan to talk about that in the future, but I'm just going to do like the basic places. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to mix Clutch and Lace. And I'm just going to hit the top part of my cheekbones, like so. And once again, I do usually like to take a sponge and just kind of press that into my face, like so. And then the next spot would be the nose, and then a little bit on the Cupid's bow is where I like, this is kind of where I do like my everyday highlight. Sometimes I'll do a little bit up here, a little bit on the forehead, a little bit under the eyes, a little bit on the chin. But that's if I want a really, really glowy look. Once summer is closer, I will do a glowy summer look and show you how I like to do that. But this is just kind of like basic highlight. I'm gonna hit this on my nose. And then I also really like to have a strong inner corner highlight, which I'll show you in a minute. I will do that after I do the eyeshadow for today. So eyeshadow is another one of those things. It really just depends on your preference. Today I'm going to show you how you can do eyeshadow with bronzer, but I think there's little baby palettes, affordable brands that have really good eyeshadow. BH Cosmetics does a wonderful job. Wet n Wild's really stepped up their game. Elf's newer palettes are really, really good. I mean, you can experiment with that, watch some tutorials, and see what you like best. So what I'm going to do is, obviously, you hear about eye primers, but where did I put it? Okay, to me, it works just as well to just use a little bit of concealer for your eyes. As you're getting into brighter colors, or if you find that your eyeshadow is just not staying like you want it to, you can 100% start looking into eye primers, but I think a concealer works really, really well. So I'm just going to use my concealer today. And what I do recommend doing, especially if you're new at blending, what can help with blending is setting that concealer or eye primer with a powder. The only downfall of a powder is sometimes your bright colors are not going to be as pigmented if you don't have that kind of wet base. But other than that, to me, I think it totally helps to set your eye primer. So what I'm going to do is, so basically the areas that kind of like the basics of like a basic look is your crease, your outer corner, and your lid. I can do more like not structured, a more specific eyeshadow video if you guys want. But honestly, let me see if I can zoom in. Okay. Scoot in a little bit. But honestly, the best way for just a starter to kind of get the idea of what you think of eyeshadow is I just like to take a fluffy brush, dip it in my bronzer, and then just use windshield wiper motions into my crease. Like so. And the nice thing about a bronzer is a bronzer is going to blend a little bit faster than an eyeshadow will. So this isn't something that's going to take you a super long time. It's not super hard to blend. You don't really have to worry about like switching with a ton of brushes. I do still like to take a clean brush. This is totally optional, but I do like to take a clean brush without any product. I find that that can help me blend. Sometimes it can be a little bit overwhelming trying to blend eyeshadow with a brush that still has got a ton of product on it. So this is what I like to do. And as you can see, it's just nice, you know, a nice neutral shadow. Obviously, if you want to go lighter, you can just put less product on your brush and blend a little bit more, and you can have a much lighter look. If you want to go darker, you can. It just, once again, depends on your preference. And then for your lid, what you can do is you can take your bronzer, your blush, your highlight. Once again, you don't have to necessarily have a whole eyeshadow palette. Today, I think I'm just going to take a bronzer on this fluffier brush, and I'm just going to swipe this on my eyelid. But as I said, if you would like to use a highlighter or a blush, you 100% can do that. So I just did that. As you can see, I tapped into this product a little bit less, and I blended a little bit more so it was a little bit lighter on my lid. And then what you can do also, if you want to kind of even it out throughout your whole eye, you can take a smaller brush, tap it in, and then go under the eye at the lash line. And that can just help, you know, even out and having color all the way around your eye. Okay, so what I'm going to do next is another 100% optional thing, depends on your preference. Eyeliner. To me, eyeliner is something that is once again kind of one of those second stage things. Winged liner, I recommend be prepared to spend some time just working on winged liner without necessarily like at night. Like before you're about to take your makeup off, that is the best time to practice winged liner. But understand that winged liner takes a lot of practice. My personal favorite liquid eyeliner is the Super Precise eyeliner. If you guys want me to do a tutorial on how to do a wing, let me know. I'm not going to do winged liner today, but as I said, if you want me to do a tutorial on that, I totally can. But just understand with that, practice makes perfect. And then waterline eyeliner, I think I am going to do a little bit today. If you want something a little bit less harsh, you can use a brown, but I personally like to use a black, and so I'm going to use today. This is the Essence Long Lasting eye pencil. I really, really like it. So, as I said, definitely totally up to you on what you decide to do. I personally like to take a little bit in my waterline. I find the best way to make it stay the longest. I do a layer on this eye. Do a layer on the other eye. And while I was doing this eye had a little bit of time to dry, so I'm switching back over and doing one more layer. And then if you feel like, if you're kind of concerned, if your eyes get overly watery and you really want to make sure it does not move all day, what you can do is take an angled brush, a little bit of an eyeshadow, and just press where you did your eyeliner. That's not something you have to do, but for me, my eyes get really watery, so I do like to do that just to ensure they're going to stay all day. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that smaller brush, and I am going to put that highlight in the inner corner. I recommend having a highlight or a white shade in your inner corner. Once again, as you start to progress on, it just can help your eyes pop. Adds a nice little shimmer. And I think I am going to take a little bit of this highlight on the lid. Once again, completely optional. If you feel like you don't want to have eyeliner or have eyeshadow, you can totally stick to just mascara. Once again, it's up to you. So now I'm going to move on to mascara. Mascara is one of those things, along with concealer and powder, that I feel like if you're going to get into makeup, it's really something that you should consider using. Not so much to like make your lashes pop out, but I feel like it just kind of helps bring everything together, if that makes sense. Once again, completely up to you, but I really do like to have a good mascara. So this one is the Lash Princess False Lash Effect Mascara. It is waterproof. It's from Essence. Whether or not you go waterproof is up to you and how watery your eyes get. Mine get pretty watery, so I like to have a waterproof one to make sure it's not going to smudge throughout the day. But if you want to have a regular one that's a little bit easier to remove, you totally can do that. So I'm just going to do my mascara. And there's all kinds of methods you can use while applying mascara. I definitely recommend looking at some YouTube videos for different methods that you can try depending on what you want. A lot of people like to curl their eyelashes. I personally am not a fan of curling my lashes, but if you want to, that is also something you can do prior mascara. And as you can see, that makes such a difference. And what I recommend doing, do one eye, do the other one, and then come back and do a second coat once this has had a minute to kind of start to dry. Okay. And another TikTok I might do is kind of discussing the different types of mascaras and, you know, what kind of stuff you can look for in a mascara depending on what you want. Once again, let me know if there's anything specific you want me to go in more detail about makeup. Let me know and I will definitely do a video on that. So next we're going to move to eyebrows. So if you want, some people don't like to do their eyebrows and that's totally okay. You can just take a spoolie, brush them out, call it a day. I personally like to do my eyebrows. I think to me on whether or not you should start with eyebrows just depends on, you know, how is the natural shape of your brows. Do you like the natural shape of your brows or do you want to change them a little bit? That is completely up to you. So you can get an eyebrow pencil. This is the e.l.f. eyebrow pencil. I really, really like it. You also can get a pomade, or if you do decide to get an eyeshadow, you can just use eyeshadow, which is what I'm going to use today. So I really, let me have a brush. Okay, so I really do recommend taking some time, doing some research on if you like a more natural brow or a more dramatic brow. I personally like a more dramatic brow, but it's up to you. I can do a video on like where I break down using each product for your eyebrows and how you can, you know, make it more dramatic or more natural. I like to make mine more dramatic. So what I like to do is I like to mix this brown and black. That works best for my shade. And you just kind of want to follow the shape of your brow, but you can also reshape a little bit if, you know, maybe you want your brows more arched, or maybe I've got kind of like a bald patch. Maybe you've got a patch you want to fill in. It's up to you, and as I said, I can do a more detailed video on how to do your brows, but an eyeshadow is nice because you can just kind of run your brush through the eyeshadow, work through your brow. You don't have to spend too much time shaping or blending. It's pretty quick and to the point, and that's why a lot of times I do just like to use an eyeshadow for my brows. Okay, so that is what it looks like when my brows are done. I do like to take a spoolie and just kind of blend the eyeshadow. Once again, if you want me to do a video on the different ways to do your brows, how to do your brows, more detailed, just on brows, let me know. And then in terms of eyebrow gel, to me, if you're using an eyeshadow, I recommend staying away from eyebrow gel. I find that it can kind of make the eyeshadow a little bit less pigmented. But if you're using a pomade or a pencil, then you might want to invest in an eyebrow gel, which you can get really cheap ones from like e.l.f. and stuff like that. So what I did forget to discuss, what I forgot to do, going back to mascara, if you want to prevent your eyelashes from smudging and kind of creating that black under your eye, take a little bit of powder on a brush and just set under where the bottom of your lashes hit, and that's really going to help them not cause issues throughout the day. So the last is lipstick. Once again, I feel like this is kind of like, you don't need it. It is totally up to you on what you think of lipsticks or lip glosses. I will make a video sometime on the different types of finishes. Honestly, for me, what's been like my favorite lately is just to have a gloss. So my favorite gloss is the Revlon gloss in Supernatural. Obviously, there's different lip products you can experiment with. You can mix colors. It really just depends on your personal preference and how natural you are wanting to look. So this was kind of my basics into makeup, how to start makeup, just kind of like a basic beginner's look. I hope this helped you guys. If you want to see anything more specific, let me know, comment down below. You can, comment on TikTok. You can message me on Instagram. Sorry about my nails. I need to redo my nails. You can always comment on YouTube. I will have my social medias linked down below. Thank you so much for watching. Feel free to like this video and subscribe if you want to see more of my videos. I've been trying to post at least once a week, usually on Sundays, sometimes on Wednesdays, depends. I have been able to lately post 2 times a week. I usually post 1 to 2 times a week, depends on the week. Also, a platform of mine that's kind of newer is I did get a Twitter. If you want updates on when new videos are going to come out, when I post on TikTok, when I post on Instagram, feel free to check out my Twitter. I will be listing that stuff there. So thank you so much for watching. Bye.